Welcome in to the latest episode of the Need for Screens College Football Podcast, presented by the pregame.com podcast network. I'm your host, the real_G Warner, joined by @BigEastBen. We are fighting our way through the bowl season, and yes, we might have some sit-outs. Yes, they might be late announcements. Who knows who's worried about their future if they're entering the portal early, all these sort of things. But we're trying to work our way through and help you fill out your bowl confidence pool pick sheets. We're going to go against the spread for the next 5 bowl games as we start bowl season. Some of these are not the sexiest matchups out there, we will admit. There's a lot swirling around all these programs, but we're going to do our best and hopefully get you to the window or get you at least off to a not terrible start to your bowl confidence pool. We went 1-on-1 our best bets last weekend at Big East Ben. What do you think of the college football? I guess the not college football playoff, excuse me. We already did a podcast on that with our good friend Jeff Lenar at Jeff Rito on Twitter or something like that. I'm not sure if I've seen that yet. Do you know his handle by any chance?
El Jefe 603.
El Jefe 603 on Twitter. He joined us, Navy grad, former Navy football player. So that all will be good. And go check that out if you want some tips on the Army Navy game as well. But we're gonna start. I guess we'll start with your thoughts on the conference championships because we didn't really get into that on our last episode.
We did kind of touch on it. I railed against Texas about not being able to beat a backup quarterback.
Okay.
Um,
Check our latest episode for that. Your best bet was
I
UNLV. What do you think about that one? Because we didn't really touch on Boise making it into the playoff.
yeah, I mean UNLV guys, 3rd and 17, you give up a 30-yard pass for that first touchdown, and then you can get to the locker room down a touchdown, I think, and you let Ashton Genty rip off a 50-yard run. So those two plays just totally screwed them. I didn't know about Haj Malik Williams saying that he couldn't find Boise on a map before the game. So every
Brilliant.
time he got sacked on the Jumbotron, they just do a zoom in on where Boise was. You can't be saying shit like that, dude. Like, come on. Um,
They are 18 to 23, or I guess with the portal, they could be 25. Who knows? But bulletin board does matter in the bowl season. It certainly matters in conference championship season. And I guess if you got any more on that game or anything else you want to touch on.
I'm ready to formally accept that Kenny Dillingham is a good coach, and it pains me to say it. And I've been thinking I was going to die on this hill the entire season, and I am formally retracting all negative statements I have said about the man. That was a total shit pumping of Iowa State. I thought we were looking good with Iowa State getting that, have a nice drive early, going up a score, and then everything fell apart. Bo Skadabo's amazing. Like that guy is the toughest guy to tackle in college football. I was watching some clips of his high school tape. There's one play where he like breaks like 17 tackles, like multiple guy, like he breaks multiple defenders tackles on the play. So that guy's incredible. Shout out Arizona State. Forks up.
Forks up, baby. Throw that shocker. I think it reminds me of Sam McGuffey in his days I guess from the high school film reels that who knows how those ended up turning at Michigan. But we might get to Sam McGuffey and Rich Rod potentially later in the show. So we're going to go through and get you through our first 5 bowl games coming up. And we got locations for them. So if you want to slide in our DMs or at our podcast platform program, anything like that. It will be on me, not at Big East Ben, but I do know you all love to slide in at Big East Ben's DMs or at least in his mentions to tell him that he doesn't know where games are being played. I'm actually surprised someone didn't edit it and kind of tell you where Boise
Hey
was.
Griffin,
Hey,
who's Sam McGuffey?
okay, Sam McGuffey was a like unstoppable #1 recruit way back when. It's like a small white running back, speed guy who I think went to Michigan for under Rich Rod and never turned into anything, just like Rich Rod's career at Michigan. I think finished his career at Rice, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't think I messed up this name, but it's very possible. It's been a while, and I have been concussed in my life.
Okay, because I got the right guy up. His bio reads, is an American bobsledder for the United States men's national team, a former professional football running back, and former rugby. So I got the right guy. He has the thickest neck I've ever seen in my life.
I do wonder if he edited his Wikipedia, which most of the time Wikipedia, if you edit something and you change something to incorrect, they do change it back really quickly and make it corrected. But professional football player seems like there's a lot of quotes around that if I remember correctly. But we're gonna go through with probably plenty of little these diagrams.
I remember this tape now. I'm seeing now the Barstool blog. Like Sam McGuffey's high school highlight tape is still the great. Yeah, I remember this guy.
I mean, he was nasty, and he was going to be the white running back that like made he basically like Mike Allstott was wearing Sam McGuffey pajamas back in the day, but unfortunately, one of them made it to the pros. So I guess you can call yourself a former professional running back on Wikipedia if you want to. So we've already gone over Navy and Army, which is a big matchup on this Saturday. Check our latest episode with El Jefe 603, who joined, former Navy offensive lineman. We'll move next to the start of the bowl season. And what else would you be doing on a Saturday night at Big East Bend than watching South Alabama, a 9-point favorite to the Western Michigan Broncos? South Alabama, do you know their mascot?
Jaguars.
Nice, very good. I don't know if I would pronounce Jaguars that way, but it is what it is. They are playing in what's called it looks really close to ISIS, but IS4S Salute to Veterans Bowl against Western Michigan. That is not a home game. It says that Western Michigan is at home, but it's not. They are playing at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. So maybe you give some home field advantage here. I think that's one thing you always want to look at when you're checking out bowl games, especially for picking them, is really trying to get an idea of what the crowd will look like. Not too bad from South Alabama to travel up north in Alabama to Montgomery. Long way for Western Michigan. And I don't know, would you think if you're a Western Michigan Bronx fan, are you going down south to try to get away from that cold weather in early December, and you choose, of all places, Montgomery, Alabama?
So I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last weekend, which I think is on the same degree of latitude
There we
as
go.
Western Michigan.
Not longitude.
I can confirm it is cold up there.
So, I mean, maybe it certainly would be a improvement in weather conditions potentially. But we'll get to the geography lessons later. So, looking through the South Alabama schedule, so they of course finished 6-6 as the minimum to make bowl games, unless your APR is great. Apparently, lost their last game of the year at home to Texas State, but had pretty much as a 6-6 team would do, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Seems like they had their biggest game on the schedule was a loss at LSU, 42-10, which doesn't look great for an offense that's a 9-point favorite in this matchup. And I got to say, doesn't I guess maybe you could say only giving up 42 points to LSU's offense is saying something, but maybe not saying enough potentially. Other games of interest, potentially, I don't really see them, so I'll move to the Western Michigan side of things. But just to give you a reminder of the spread, so we've got South Alabama 9-point favorites. Total is 57.5 in this one. I think most people, especially if you're picking straight up, I don't know who's picking Western Michigan in this game. I do think that that's where the value generally sits in bowl pick'ems, is you want to take teams that will be on the other side that everyone is picking, especially maybe you want to do that with like a 3-point favorite as opposed to a 9-point favorite, because it suggests a pretty significant difference. But Western Michigan losing 56-0 at the Horseshoe at Ohio State doesn't say much to me. And these two teams are both 6-6, so clearly they know how to win and to lose. At Big East Bend, do you have any thoughts?
Griffin, are totals ineligible for this bowl pick'em
No,
contest?
you. So as far as I know, unless you're in one of those so that actually is a great segue, and I must not forget, how could I, of the college football bowl contest that pregame.com is putting on. It's called the Free CFB Bowl Bash Bonanza Contest, and you pick 20 sides and totals, minimum 20, maximum 50. You get graded on them. The most net profit wins the entire contest. You win $500 cash and $500 pregame bulk dollars when you come in first place. So that's where that second gets 300 cash, third place, fourth through 10th, all get pregame.com bulk dollars. So it's certainly worth it if you want to play in this. You can play totals in that matchup. So that is probably the way you do it. I don't think most bold confidence pools will allow you to kind of substitute a game. Usually you're picking a straight up winner. Sometimes you're picking against a spread. And I think very rarely will they let you play totals in a bowl pick'em. So we can do that because we are a betting podcast in college football. We have been all season, and we don't plan to change that anytime soon. But that hopefully that clarifies your question, and thank you for reminding me that we need to shout out this contest. You got only a few more hours to register, but go do it at the pregame.com website.
I'm going to go with the over 57.5. Both these defenses are hot garbage. Western Michigan, 103rd in opponents' yards per game, 103rd in opponents' points per game. South Alabama, 101st in yards per game, 73rd in points per game. Both teams run the ball pretty well, have no rush defense to speak with. I think this is going to be a lot of big plays on the ground. Give me the over, and the fans in the Crampton Bowl will be very excited.
All right, over 57.5. I'll take the underdog plus 9 points in this matchup, and we'll move on to the next big matchup. So I guess we go from December 14th to Saturday, skip Sunday because who wants to compete with the NFL, and skip Monday because who wants to compete with the NFL. And so we'll go to a bowl game of Memphis and West Virginia. This matchup is the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. And I know where Frisco is because I live very close to it. It's about 30, 45 minutes or so from where I'm recording right now, Victory Park, Dallas, Texas. Frisco is where Toyota moved all their locations. I don't know that there's a lot of West Virginia or Memphis people working for Toyota that would call this a home game. But when looking through the schedules, and I guess I'll go to the point spread first. So Memphis, a 5-point favorite. Total in this matchup is 59. And actually, Big East Ben, before we started on this podcast, you had some questions about West Virginia and who the heck is coaching.
Well, yeah, they fired Brown, hired Rich Rodriguez. Sometimes you got to go backwards to keep moving forward. Literal meme in real life. So yeah, Memphis didn't fire their coach. Who knows who's going to play for West Virginia? If you like, do you even show up if you're West Virginia?
I think a lot of people just at this point, it's really hard to know who's going to show up for any game, especially with, I'm sure you got to be prepared for, if you're betting early, you better feel pretty confident that you have some motivated players. Generally, I think that would favor the lower ranked of schools, or at least the less prominent, lower, smaller conferences potentially. Like, and I think Memphis fits the bill here as a 5-point favorite. That's certainly not cheap. But Rich Rodriguez coming back. We've seen new manager bounces working on the soccer field, but not so much on the football field, I got to say, the American football one, that is, as we just saw the Bears in the NFL get absolutely embarrassed by a 49ers team that looked like they were a walking corpse, and really took a week to look like they were alive until looking like a corpse again. But all good questions, and certainly something you want to look into. And
That coach's name was Brown too, the
uh,
interim guy for the Bears.
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, we could be drawing parallels between sports and completely different situations. But going through schedules, so this game in Frisco, I don't think it really matters more for West Virginia or Memphis. I think the traveling fan base for West Virginia probably should be bigger than Memphis. Memphis more of a basketball school, of course. And at Big East Ben and I went to a West Virginia basketball game a couple seasons ago. And football, I think they take a lot more seriously, as our Uber drivers would confirm. In terms of the schedule strength, we have Memphis, who went to Florida State and won. They lost at Navy. Pretty good, I feel like, on the road this year. Won at Tulane in their final game on the 28th of November. So that does, I think, look fairly good for Memphis potentially. Again, I don't really see a huge home field sort of advantage like you might see from South Alabama playing in their home state. In terms of West Virginia, so they come from the Big 12. That does say something. Got blown out on a neutral to Penn State in week 1, lost at Pitt, big rivalry game. And then their losses were a bunch of home games, actually. Iowa State at home, Kansas State at home, both were ranked, and Baylor at home, and then closed the year out with a 52-15 loss at Texas Tech. So what do you think, Big East Ben? If you're gonna make a pick on this matchup, are you going with Memphis a 5-point favorite and the total is 59?
I am. Memphis is actually on a 3-year bowl winning streak. They won the 2020 Montgomery Bowl over Florida Atlantic. Go Owls. They won the 2022 First Responder Bowl over Utah State. And they won the 2023 Liberty Bowl over Iowa State. So they show up for their bowl games. They take their bowl games. They take their middling bowl games seriously down in Memphis. I will go with the Tigers covering the number against a team with no coach.
That makes sense. So 6-6 West Virginia against 10-2 Memphis. Memphis with a 25 next to their name, at least on ESPN. So that's a good sign. I do think you're right. I think we see more desire and I think really a better team with a better record. So I'll take Memphis. This does feel like one of those that a lot of people will pick in the bowl confidence pool. But there we go. We're trying to win some money here. Moving next to the 18th of December. So this is a Tuesday game with a game following quickly behind that as well. Western Kentucky, a 9.5-point underdog to James Madison. Total in this matchup is 52.5. I'll get you locations and all these sort of things. This is the Boca Raton Bowl. Speaking of the Owls, with one of the most beautiful fan bases I've seen at a Final Four, to say the least. Take that, Purdue. FAU will be not in this game, but they will be there in spirit. Hopefully the co-eds will show up. James Madison coming down from Virginia right off the highway. Western Kentucky coming from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I think if anything jumps off the page, shout. But the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers just played Jacksonville State twice in a row, beat them at home by 2 points, and then lost 52-12 just on last Friday. So they've got a quick turnaround, and we'll see how that impacts their team. 8-5 on the year. I think a close loss to Boston College was nice on the road, 21-20. But the opener, a loss 63-0 against Alabama, was not beautiful. Then we'll move across the way, unless you have something on WKU. But definitely a basketball school, and they do play this weekend, so that's not great to potentially limit some travel. But maybe you go see the Tops win at home on Saturday in college basketball, and then go see them in Boca Raton and get your vacation on. From a James Madison perspective, 8-4 this year.
They lost by 40 after losing by 2.
After winning by 2,
Winning by 2.
even weirder. Apparently, the location mattered a little bit for Western Kentucky. When you're not playing at home and instead you're traveling against the same team a couple weeks later to Jacksonville, I feel like Jacksonville State. Do you know where they're located?
It's Alabama, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very well done. I was waiting to trick you, trying to trick you. But so just go through the JMU. So they were able to beat North Carolina, as I wear my Chapel Bill shirt. Also potentially a little bit remembering the end of Mac Brown's illustrious career. And apparently he tried to extend it even longer than it was going to be allotted by going around the AD, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But North Carolina was a loser to James Madison earlier this year. And I think we've probably covered enough on this game. So at Big East Bend, we're seeing 52.5 on this total, and Western Kentucky a 9.5-point underdog.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a stats perspective, these teams are in totally different leagues. JMU, 29th ranked defense in terms of points per game, 25th ranked defense in yards per game. Western Kentucky, 71st in points, 94th in yards. Offensively, Western Kentucky, 25th in points, 75th in yards. JMU, 11th in points, 35.7 points per game, 33 in yards. This spread should be double digits. I will take James Madison.
All right, James Madison minus 9.5 for Big East Bend. I'll go with the under in this matchup. I'll go under 52.5. And now we'll move to a team that has come up on this podcast a bunch this season, maybe due to comedic value, but the Cal Golden Bears, the Calgorithm, they're a 1.5-point favorite to UNLV, coming off a rough figure out where Boise is on a map, loss in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. Totals 48.5 in this matchup. Before we get too deep, it is the Art of Sport LA Bowl, which I imagine is in Los Angeles. Cal, of course, with an incredible run, started the season 3-0 with wins at Auburn included, but then lost at Florida State, to Miami, at Pittsburgh, and at home to NC State in a long-standing college football and ACC rivalry. Bounced back with a win against independent Oregon State at Wake Forest, but then lost to Syracuse, lost to SMU in their road final game, I guess you could say. UNLV, though, I mean, how much do they care about this game? That's probably the biggest thing here. Cal 6-6, 2-6 in conference. Feel very, very fortunate to be in a bowl game, but that's what happens when you play in a conference on the wrong coast. But actually, it's called the Atlantic Coast Conference. UNLV on the other side, of course, with that rough loss to Boise on Friday, it was a low-scoring game, 21-7. Maybe you see some value there, despite two losses to the Boise State. I guess playoff bound Boise State.
I don't know if that's accurate about how much UNLV cares about this game. I mean, yes, they missed out on the college football playoff, and it's disappointing, but it's still one of the greatest seasons in UNLV football history. And I think the guys would want to end it with a bowl victory, something to hang up on their mantle at the end of the season. Uh, the big question is Mendoza. I don't think he's playing. Also, if he does play, I can't imagine the front seven will be too enthusiastic to block for a guy that says, "Hey, I'm out of here." But I don't think he plays. Cal's rushing attack is dreadful. 3.6 yards per rush, 108th in the country. And even if it was good, UNLV has the 19th ranked rush defense. So I don't know why Cal's favoring this. I'll take the Rebs ending the season on a high note.
Yeah, I like it too. I'll take the 1.5. Feels like wrong team favorite here potentially, though. It does also feel like a lot of your pool will probably be on UNLV. But I guess that's one of those scenarios where if everyone's on them and you're on the other side and you lose, that's a really rough position to be in. So we'll both grab UNLV plus 1.5 in the players only. Just kidding. The Art of Sport LA Bowl, because they just come up with fantastic names every
This,
season.
this hosted by Gronk.
I mean,
This
hey,
Gronk stuff has just come out of nowhere the past week. I heard about it on the local news while I was on the treadmill like a week ago. Now it's all over Twitter. Now they're hosting a bowl game. I know I'm not the most like tech savvy person and in depth late, but these
what?
guys came out of nowhere.
You aren't?
What is
I usually go to
no?
you for all my tech questions. I thought you were. Have you been chat GBTing all my questions?
I play real sports. To quote Steve, who said that? Feely or
Steve
Weatherford?
Belichick?
It was either Jay Feely or Steve Weatherford.
Oh, Steve Weatherford. Aren't they both kickers?
I think
Punt-
Weatherford's a punter and
Punter,
Feely's the
yeah.
kicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feely has that great clip. If you ever want to laugh, he's announcing. Um, he sounds like some maybe like Conference USA game or American game, and the kicker lines up for the field goal. Field goal goes like 20 yards to the right, and Feely's like, "Oh, that's a great kick for Memphis. Memphis is on the board. Three. Look it up. It's an all-time
And the field
clip.
goal misses, right?
Yeah, by like 20 yards.
Well, at least he's in the booth. It probably gets a little crowded. Him, Gene Steratore, with his index card, and Jay Feely all there to analyze any sort of kicks. I don't know who he knows or has pictures of that got him that job. But last game on this card that we'll cover on this episode, the RNL Carriers New Orleans Bowl, which I think I know where that is. Go enjoy. I would say go to some green. I think it's Laverne or something like that. Convenience store. Get your shrimp po' boy. Get the all that jazz. Highly recommend. Don't think it was only because it was 2 a.m. after a bunch of beers and a Texas Sugar Bowl loss, but highly recommend. So we have Sam Houston, which I guess they're not state anymore. They are playing the Georgia Southern Eagles, I believe. Georgia Southern, a 6-point favorite. Total is 49 in this matchup. Georgia Southern will start there. They did lose to Boise State in their opener, which was probably fairly disappointing, but I guess wasn't the worst thing because they've rallied back, won 8 of their next 11, finished the year with I guess a blowout loss on the road at Ole Miss as well. But pretty good. I think won 6 of their last 8, and like I said, 8 of their last 11. Pretty good run there with only one really weak team like South Carolina State on the schedule. As for the Sam Houston Bearcats, I want to say with a K, if I remember correctly, played them in one of our away game, or excuse me, one of our bye games when I was, I think, a freshman at UT.
Yeah,
Um,
with a K.
Bearcats with a K, baby. They are 9-3 this year. Finished their season with a win at home to Liberty, which is, I think, a win for everyone. Anytime Liberty does lose, they come up again as they lost right before Liberty. They lost on the road at Jacksonville State. Also lost to Western Kentucky. So maybe you could play some transitive property, though I certainly would not recommend that. In terms of where this game has gone or where it could go, it's in New Orleans Bowl. So that's, I guess, closer to Georgia, but honestly, probably closer to the Houston side of things. I think Sam Houston probably deserves, if you're giving any sort of home field, it probably doesn't make sense to give much. But I think you'd want to look at the Sam Houston State side, and they're a 6-point underdog. What do you think at Big East, Ben?
So the Jay Feely clip is from Eastern Michigan Toledo game.
Nice. I
Eastern Michigan's.
I
Yeah.
don't know that I was watching that one live.
No, no. Not great offenses in this game. Georgia Southern 61st in the country in points per game, 26.9. Sam Houston State 23 in points per game. Both teams have really bad passing attacks in terms of yards per pass. Not much rush game to speak of, but Sam Houston State is a little better. Georgia Southern was 8-3 against the spread. That's good enough for me. I will roll with Georgia Southern at 5.5.
All right, we'll fight on this one. I'll take Sam Houston State 6-point underdog. Maybe we see a late score that decides this one. So at Big East Ben at the real_G Warner, we'll be pillow fighting the whole 60 minutes. So that does it for this episode of the college football, the Need for Screens college football podcast presented by the Premium.com podcast network. But hang on, we will be giving out our best bets from this list of games that we just covered. I also want to restate that if you have not heard or signed up for the college football contest, get in there. It's called a very, very special name, the Free CFB Bowl Bash Bonanza Contest. And it will give $500 cash and 500 pregame bulk dollars for first place. Go sign up. Top 10 places all get paid various amounts of cash and of I guess bulk dollars, 20 picks minimum, 50 picks maximum, net profit, most net units is the winner. And then also, before you get too far away from the pregame.com, before you navigate away, use promo code BOWLS20, BOWLS20, good for 20% off for all listeners of this college football podcast. You've been with us all year. Go save some money. Save 20% on all access from your favorite pro. You can get the full college football rest of the season. Or if you want to look maybe down the college line to at the real_G Warner and at Big East Ben's college basketball picks. We were going through the Super Bowl. Wow, yes, that definitely, but also through the Final Four and into the championship season. So go throw Bulls 20, go make some big purchases. It's the best way to save the best bang for your buck. We don't really give out more than 20%. So go take advantage. Use that promo code BOWLS20. At Big East Ben, where do you want to go for your best bet on this first bowl season podcast?
I feel like I make these guys my best bet a lot, and sometimes they uh, do it for me. Sometimes, and as most recently, they don't. But I'm going with UNLV again. 1-point dog to Cal. Like we say, Cal doesn't have a quarterback. UNLV's rush defense is great. Cal has no running game. Give me the Rebs to close out the season on a high note.
Well, we'll be going to double best bet on this one, and we'll even get UNLV plus 1.5. Like the setup of a rush defense, like the questions about a quarterback for Cal who said he's leaving. Plus, I just think UNLV cares more about this game, despite losing in the Mountain West Championship last week. I think also playing that game makes them a little bit more in tune. They played a game more recently, but which could potentially lead to some banged up players. But I like the idea. I like UNLV, and we'll both grab plus 1.5. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Use that promo code BOWLS20. Go save 20% on anything and everything at pregame.com. Make sure you use that promo code. Save yourself some money. And make sure that we come back for another bowl season episode next week.